Well, that takes us up to our consent agenda. Can I get a motion approving items number 2 and 3?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Item number 1 is a resolution.
A resolution of the Pompano Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving and authorizing the proper officials to execute a license agreement between the City of Pompano Beach and the CRA for the city's placement and maintenance of painted artwork on the south, west, and north exterior walls of the building located at 11 Northeast 1st Street pursuant to the Cultural Affairs Department's mural project utilizing artists from the Bailey Contemporary Arts Artists in Residence, providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded for discussion. This item was pulled by several folks. Let's start off with Vice Mayor McGee.
I had a few concerns with this one. First off, this location is we currently have it trying to get it leased, correct?
I'm sorry, I missed it. What did you say?
This part of this building, we're currently looking for a tenant, correct?
Yes, Kimberly Vasquez, CRA Project Manager. We did have, as you recall, an active solicitation that was out. We did bring somebody in. We did accept that solicitation. We were in a negotiation process with them. During the negotiation process, we found out some things that kind of didn't mesh with our vision for that area, so therefore we canceled it. It currently is available for lease now. We do not have anybody who has expressed interest in leasing it, and at this time we're really not actively pursuing a tenant until we address probably some of the parking in the area. So
my concern is that, this artwork, if this were, a preschooler or something like that that wanted to put this specific type of artwork on there, I could see if that person came to us, but if I end up being like a bar and restaurant, I might not want this specific, or if we go forward with the wash house plans, we'd be changing the whole facade anyways, or if it's someone like the last person who came, they'd be tearing down the whole building anyways. So I am hesitant in doing anything like this to this site at the stage, especially as we try to market it.
I'll defer to Laura Atria to respond to that, but you are correct in your statements is that, yes, if we were to get a future tenant for that location, it would change. That being said, we think minimum we would probably be looking at 1.5 to 2 years if somebody were to come to the table today.
Laura Atria, Public Art Program Manager. Yes, so the point for this project was we actually, the Cultural Affairs Department received a grant from the Community Foundation, and that money was to be used towards the Artist in Residence program and helping them and helping extend their knowledge and their resumes. Two of the artists there are muralists who are trying to get more mural calls to artists and get more projects, but in order to do that, one of them has never done a very large scale mural on a wall. He's done floor asphalt ones. And another one, this will be his second big mural. So it's also kind of a way for us to, through what the grant we got, a way to help fund our artists and to give them references for their resumes to go forward. And since we hold a Untapped there every first Friday, and the building right now, it's a little disheveled, so we thought as a way to kind of spruce it up, because realistically, I know you said like 1.5 to 2 years, but realistically it'd probably be like a little more than 2 years if it's just sitting there. So we thought this would be just a great way to kind of beautify the location while we're waiting for that to happen.
Well, then that would bring me, one of the things you mentioned kind of brings me to my second concern would be, quite honestly, in any mural, especially if this is for artists expanding their resumes and just getting into murals, realistic humans on murals are very, very difficult to do. And the fact that there was nothing in the backup as far as completed projects by these artists to show their ability to do so, I was very concerned about that. So perhaps a design that's a little bit less, either more abstract or more nature and it's just, I was in I can't remember what city it was I was in the other day, and they had a similar, a group of people mural, and there was an extra arm in it, that like there was a hand that came out of nowhere and you're not really sure what it went to. So human form is very, very difficult, and I would only be comfortable with human form with someone who has an experience of doing murals of human form.
So both of them do. Both of them, the one, Michele Del Campo, he only paints people. He actually received a $10,000 grant from the Broward Cultural.
Mural sized?
He paints them, he's done 2 about the size of that wall over there. And then his normal paintings are probably the size of the TV or larger. And those are all figurative people. And then the one that's doing the yellow, the more yellow mural, he is very well versed in muraling. This will, I don't know, maybe be his like 50th mural. And he always does humans in his.
It would have been helpful to have their work in the backup so we could see what we're signing. Because this is, the images in here are just, one seems to be a Photoshop, and the other one is just transposed, again, probably with Photoshop over the building. So it's very disconcerting, especially when you're saying they're trying to build their portfolios and learn.
Well, the back of the area is more for the learning location. On the back of the building, we're having the muralist who is doing the yellow mural. He teaches how to mural classes, so as I can say, he's very well versed in muraling. He's actually heading classes where he's teaching other people to use something that's called like the doodle grid and how to use a spray paint can and how to mural. So the back wall is where he'll be teaching those classes, and the artists in residence who never have muraled are allowed to practice back there as well.
But this yellow wall is on the sidewall, correct?
That's his mural that he's doing that we're keeping on there. The back wall is where he'll be teaching the classes.
Well, and I also wanted to say, because I drove over there, and it's the final part of my concern, which I've had since the beginning of creating a mural scene in our city, is I drove over to Old Town, and the back wall of this building, you can see where graffiti has begun. I took pictures. There's a whole string of random things that have now been painted on that plain wall. And it's a concern from driving through Wynwood and seeing what goes on there. You know, they started as a graffiti scene that turned into murals. But there's still, when you drive towards the outskirts, or even sometimes on top of the murals, graffiti still goes on top of things. Even though, there's supposed to be a code amongst artists, it's always been a concern of mine of trying to keep graffiti contained.
Well, the wall right now is primed waiting for it, so it is kind of like an open canvas for graffiti artists to be like, oh, look, a really pretty white wall. So that's why once we can move forward with these projects, there will be action. It won't just be graffiti, it will be
But again,
murals,
areas that
artwork.
don't have mural paintings and graffiti as an art tend to have less graffiti in general because it gets painted over immediately. It's businesses that don't want it. So yeah, just the fact, I'm not gonna be able to support this one. It misses the mark. I'm concerned about the leasing. We could be knocking it down anyways. And if we're going to keep this, I'd rather continue to focus on the artist alley and trying to keep a contained area as opposed to being kind of front and center on a section of our continuous building that to this date, right now, does not have that aspect in there. It's more, the artist alley has been like a little discoverable space as opposed to this being front and center in front of the fire fountain in a very near-face place. But yeah, order of concerns, leasing, the fact that why would this money go here? If we do have this grant money, let's put it somewhere that has a longer lifespan. Human form on this scale, very difficult to do, and the continuation of graffiti in the area. So those are all my issues in a nutshell, and I'll turn it over to the rest of the commission.
Very good.
Mr.
Thanks for
Mayor.
that, Vice Mayor. Next up, we've got Commissioner Fournier. Wait, Ms. McKenna.
I just want to make sure that our record is clear. This is not a lease. It's a revocable license agreement, and we have the ability to terminate it should the circumstance arise that we would want to, restore the building to whatever a prospective tenant would want. We have that right. It's built into the license agreement. It's definitely not a lease.
Very good. Thank you for that, Ms. McKenna. Commissioner Fournier.
Thank you, Mayor. So I really try not to editorialize on public art and leave it to the experts, but in this case, I can't help myself. The backup memo talks about bees and the historical significance as an agriculture community and how these murals will reflect that importance of the honeybee and pollination. When I look at these, nothing about them makes me think of Pompano, farming, our history. I look at this and I want to scream at those kids to run away But as a mom, I know they'd already be running away shrieking because there's bees everywhere. So it's just this utopian, I don't know, unrealistic, I don't know. It looks like Bridgerton meets PBS Kids or something. It's just very strange to me. So I don't know how my colleagues feel about it besides Vice Mayor McGee, but I cannot support these designs. They look like a movie poster from like the Killer Bee Nightmare. It's just not the right, it's not the right artwork. It's very strange. And the location, to me, I could probably support it as described, with it being like a learning exercise. And given that we are not committed to this over some long period of time, but with it being a revocable license, but these designs are just missed the mark completely for me. So I can't support this, but thank you for the idea.
Very good. Next, I have Commissioner Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you explain to me again about the funding? I think you mentioned something about the funding for this particular.
Yes, the funding is through a grant that we received, that the Cultural Affairs Department received from the Community Foundation of Broward, and the money is towards helping the Artists in Residence program and the artists in them.
So the grant will pay the total cost?
The grant is paying for the, yeah, correct.
Okay. And I did have some concerns about the design. Doesn't appear to me to look very festive or Pompanoian, whatever you want to call it. I know that this is what, the honeybees?
Mr. Tria?
Are there any other designs or whatever that you have that you can present to us at another time?
These are the only designs that we received this time.
At this time? Okay, great. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go ahead and open it up to the public, and then we'll come back for commission discussion. I wanted to get the commissioners that had pulled this item, wanted to get their comments out there first. This is a public hearing. Is there any input from the public at this time? Seeing none, public input closed. Commissioner Moss.
Well, let me ask you, so this is being paid for by someone else. What happens if we vote no? What happens to that money?
I don't know what we will probably try to find another mural. I don't really have an answer for that right now, but we do have to use the funding.
Okay, so it could be used elsewhere. Funding could be used elsewhere.
The funding has to be used for the Artists in Residence program. And when we go to the artists, we ask them what they'd like us to, how we can help them, and this was a request as part of their professional development.
Well, I'll tell you, if I voted for or against something that you've presented in terms of the arts, I would have voted no every time, because this is the very first thing that you've come up with that I like. Everything else, I don't. But I voted yes anyway. So art by committee is going to wind up being a mess. Aside from the fact that I happen to like this nitpicking, children being frightened by bees or what else, it's poisoning the well. So I'll support this just because not only do I like it, but I really don't think that we should have art by committee. We have an artist who's come up with this. I think it's palatable. And it's being paid for by somebody else. What's not to like here? So I will support it, and I think going forward, we have to realize there's certain artistic license, and if we only vote yes for things that we like, I'm going to start voting no for everything. Thanks.
Very good. I just like to chime in. I have to agree with Commissioner Moss. I've been fairly consistent on this. We've got a public art committee that handles these kinds of things. I do not want to put my personal stamp on the artwork throughout this city, which is public artwork. I think that's up to artists to come up with those designs, and our art committee to vet those things. And honestly, I think having murals outside of Artist Alley is a great idea. As you, Laura, and I think the commission may realize, I've been after a mural on the wall that we see from City Hall for the longest time. I mean, it's more murals in exposed areas of varying things, I think is great, and that's just my feelings. I'm going to support it, of course. I believe I've got Vice Mayor, and then I'll have Commissioner Seegers-Eaton.
And that's why we have, both the committee and us to discuss things, because again, I've been pretty vocal about it. I'm searching my mind for a mural I like, that I've ever seen anywhere. Like, for me, it's graffiti, and I think it takes away from the artisticness of the architecture of the buildings and the design of the area. But, I've supported a few of them. My biggest concern, and that's why I led with it again today, is, when you go to sell a house, you stage it. It's about curb appeal. It's about the buyer wanting to see themselves in that space that you're selling. And that goes for commercial properties, too. My biggest concern on this is we're trying to lease it. We are trying to find someone to inhabit this space and create something in downtown. And if this goes up on LoopNet or CoStar or wherever it is we're marketing, they're going to think it's a preschool. And I know our goal there is for a restaurant bar situation, something to complement South, something to complement the goal for the area. So if they wanted to do the same drawings, again, I tend to agree with Allison. I'm not a fan of this one specifically. And human form, again, is very difficult. We can look at also even the bonfire one that we put back there. It's very different than a rendering that they sent us. And if they wanted to put it on a site that wanted it and they already had someone in there, a business activated, that'd be one thing. But for our marketing ability and for our ability to actually get someone to take the space, this would be the equivalent to, painting this on your house and trying to sell it. So.
Very good. Commissioner Seegers-Eaton.
So I just want to make sure, excuse me, that I'm clear. So the funding is not in jeopardy. I believe we voted to accept this grant at a prior meeting. So the funding itself, it just needs to be used for the artists in residence, correct? Okay. So I think going forward, the art committee might want to interface with our marketing group, maybe as how we're marketing the city of Pompano Beach. And, with any artist, if they're given a direction, that's what they do, then they create. So, the artwork is a beautiful, gorgeous, great theme. Honeybees are so important, and I know it goes on with our theme. I don't know if everybody gets the idea of the honeybee, with the small, the plaques and whatnot, but nonetheless. But I do think it's important that the art committee and the art as a whole that we're putting does reflect a little bit of the marketing value, the marketing theme. The theme is, what is it? I love the new downtown. A good vibe, hometown with a good vibe, or whatever the new downtown is. Warm welcome, cool vibe. I think it could be a cooler vibe, like Keith Haring and those types of work that are just colorful and cool. So, yeah, I don't like to micromanage. I don't like to, to have this, to do this right, up here and debate on the merit of an artist's piece of work, because it's fantastic. So, and I'm not sure really where that leaves us. Should we approve it? The areas to be painted, the specific locations, but with a work of art yet to be determined. Should we give the artist another go-around to come up with something a little with a better vibe? I don't know if that's where we want to go, if that's an amendment, or...
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Seegers-Eaton, are you finished? Yeah. Very good. Vice Mayor?
All right, so with this grant funding, we can, not, I guess pun intended, they can go back to the drawing board and figure out a different style for this, listening to some of the feedback about the marketability, fitting with the vibes and stuff like that, correct?
Yeah, we could get more mural options. The theme expressed from the director of the department, though, was honeybees. So that's
Director of which department?
The Cultural Affairs Department wanted to really tie in the Trail of the Honeybees and bring acknowledgement to that, so that's why the theme of honeybee was selected.
But I'm saying the funding is not tied to a theme or to
No.
a rendering or anything like that.
No, it's not.
So if it was the direction of the committee, of the commission, or what are we, the board?
Board.
The direction of the board to go back and reimagine what this could be and take in some feedback, they could.
Yes, once again, Kim Vasquez, CRA Project Manager. Just to make it clear, this is a revocable license with the city. I don't know if that determination can be made at this board level. I would defer to
No.
Claudia on that.
We're not really, Ms. Vasquez, I don't believe we're really discussing artwork at the CRA level. We're just, but we are, so. If we don't approve it here, then whatever.
Just wanted to
Point
state
well
for
taken.
the record.
Wait, so, I don't understand your comment.
Our license agreement is with the city, and from what I'm kind of hearing is you're asking her to go back to the drawing board to recreate the tool to get it back to the CRA board if they were to use our property. That's the only reason we're here, is because they want to use the 11 buildings. So I don't know where this is going to go today, but I just want to make it clear.
My question was more tied, the grant funding, there is still time to come up with a different design, a different direction and come back. Yes. So yeah, so they could do that and come back and say, we have a new idea. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but just to Ms. Vasquez's point, our item really deals with the agreement with the city. Well, we're discussing things that really, it's not really within the purview of what our item is. But of course, we can talk about anything we want.
Well, I don't think we're going to agree to do it without knowing what it is.
Mr. Harris?
That agreement has not come to the city commission yet.
Okay,
This was a step.
gotcha. Next, I've got Commissioner Moss.
I'd like to ask everybody in the room who has horrible taste, if you dress like Bozo the Clown, if your home looks like Pee-wee's Playhouse, your car is banged up and filthy, if you have no artistic sense at all, would you please raise your hand? A room full
Experts.
of highly sensitive artistic experts. Only happen in Pompano Beach. I really think that the reasons that we've been given for not moving this forward are silly and just a matter of personal taste. Maybe we should all be on the committee that chooses the artists. This is boiling down to I like it, I don't like it. I don't like it, let me invent some reasons to justify why I don't like it, but it's boiling down to I don't like it. And it's not, for me, it's not a question of like or not like. It's a question of, people's personal preferences and subjectivity. And if we all want to be the ones that choose these paintings, then we should be on that committee that chooses it. But this isn't the first time it's happened. I mean, we've nitpicked minutia more times than I care to count up here. And we're voting on $1.5 million contracts. No, don't say a word. And on this, which isn't costing our taxpayers one red cent, we're ripping it apart. To me, it seems silly. So maybe we should put it up to all of the highly tasteful people that are sitting out in the audience whose taste is exquisite to vote on it.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Moss. I've got Commissioner Fournier. Then I'll come back over to Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I tend to agree with you. Like I said, I don't really comment on much of the public art. I leave it up to the experts in the committee. But in this case, I had to. I found it quite strange, actually. And it doesn't cost anything, but the residents I showed this to, the parents, also thought it was quite strange. So it might not cost us now, but it was going to cost us in emails and time later in dealing with it when we have complaints about this or people don't like it. So the bit of feedback I got from experts on public art was also pretty negative. So I agree with Vice Mayor McGee. I think if we could just maybe come back with some different designs on this one. And I know that that's too in the weeds for the mayor and for Commissioner Moss, but this one is an outlier to me. So thank you.
Very good. I've got Vice Mayor.
And I get, but we do get into the weeds on things, and that is why we're here. We get into this on parking ratios, we get into it on site plan approvals, we get onto on anything, because everything we choose to do here in our city affects our city. And, you know, I do happen to have a background in the arts. I have worked as a professional artist. My grandmother was a professional artist, and I do real estate, so I kind of bring in all of these expertise into my thought process when I come up here. And I've seen places where it's gone amok very quickly. Again, if this was a operational business that wanted these bees on there and it wasn't or if it wasn't our specific, you know, real estate that we're trying to find someone to get into there, again, it's staging. Like, that just goes down to business. Whether or not you like, you know, you go with something neutral. There's a reason staged homes are painted neutrals and brought in with very basic, you know, furniture if they bring those in, is because that's how you can feel if you can fit in that space. If this was more of a abstract, possibly it could still work. But again, we're trying to attract a high-end restaurateur with a bar, and to put a bunch of children on top of that with flowers and bees, that's a little bit strange. And just stuff for us to consider. And I get, you know, this isn't our money, but technically it is our money because we all paid taxes to somebody. So it's still money that should be spent, I think, you know, thoughtfully. And if they can come up with a better placement that could last longer and not also scare away possible clientele, I think that could be a win-win-win for everybody. So, yeah, I think I'd like to see what else we can come up with and do something else. You know, I think getting the artists and residents more experience is great initiative, and we can see what they can do. But, you know, this is how feedback is, and to an extent, when you have a patron, which is what we as a city are, you do sometimes have to listen to the taste of that patron as well. And as we discussed in a prior one, you know, at the end of the day, if this goes up and all the parents are afraid of their kids getting stung by bees, they're going to complain to us, not the Public Art Committee, not the other committees that are there. So, yeah, I think this needs to go for a round two. Is that a motion?
Well, I'll tell you, we already have a motion on the floor, actually.
No, we just vote down, then they can vote.
I just have to chime in one last time. I agree with Commissioner Moss. If we don't like the job the Public Art Committee is doing, then by God, we ought to change the parameters of the Public Art Committee.
We do that.
I don't want to be part of the Public Art Committee, and I appreciate everything they do. I think they do a wonderful job, and I think we should move this forward and let it go. Ms. McKenna, if 6 months from now we got somebody who was interested in leasing that place and they said, I want to put a bar in there, but I can't stand these pictures of kids on the side, that's going to kill my business, so I'm not going to lease, could we then tell them, we'll paint over it?
Absolutely. What would happen is we would send a notice to the city, because that's the other party to the license, saying that we need to terminate the license. And I don't recall the exact period of the notice, but they have to have time to remove the mural, et cetera.
Right.
But yes, that's
good.
why it's a revocable license agreement. We can walk away. And,
Right.
and that's intentional, because the CRA recognizes we have other intended purposes for the building.
Right. And Ms. Atria, if we were to move this forward now, and 6 weeks from now, when it's painted, it turns out there is just a third arm on one of the human figures, could we paint over it?
As long as the termination process, but also in the artist agreement, they have to undergo inspections at like 10%, 25%, 50%, 75%, where I go out and I make sure that the mural looks like the maquette, the design that they give us. So I would notice a third arm before it was completed and correct the issue then.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Let's go ahead and call the roll on the motion.
Commissioner Fournier,
No.
Commissioner Moss,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
No.
Commissioner Seegerson-Eaton,
No.
Vice Chair McGee,
No.
Chair Harden.
Yes. Very good. That takes us up to our regular agenda. Item number 4. What is item number 4? Is a resolution.
A resolution of the Pompano Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving and authorizing the proper officials to execute a lease agreement between the CRA and Willie Francois relating to property located at 126 North Flagler Avenue, Pompano Beach, Florida, providing an effective date.
So moved?
Moved and second for discussion. Once again, Ms. Vasquez.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Board members. Kimberly Vasquez, CRA Project Manager. The item before you today is a lease agreement between the CRA and Willie Francois, who is the property owner of 126 North Flagler Avenue. It was formerly a real estate office. It is 1,796 square feet, and the property is currently vacant and has been for some time. The owner has recently relocated out of the state of Florida for work purposes, and he approached the CRA, knowing our vision for the Old Town Arts and Entertainment District, to see if there was interest in us leasing the space so that we could find a viable tenant who would fit into the vision for Old Town. The base cost is $14.67 a square foot. We would reimburse the property owner annually for the property taxes and insurance. The initial term of this lease proposed is for 5 years with 2 5-year renewal options. It does have a 5% escalation rate. And if this lease is approved by this board today, then we would turn around, advertise it, sublease it, and all these terms would go to the sublessee. That concludes my presentation on this item. I'll take any questions the board may have at this time.
Very good, thank you for that. This is a public hearing. Is there any input from the public on this item? Seeing none, public input closed. Commission discussion, questions, concerns. Commissioner Fournier?
Thank you. What condition is the property in?
It's in fairly decent condition. It was formerly an office, so there would have to be some probably internal demo. And the CRA was looking at the back of the property that currently faces on the backyard, which we've invested our dollars into to make it an outdoor plaza, eating, entertainment space, and would like to see the back of the property opened up onto that plaza.
Okay, so do you have a tenant in mind or a type of business in mind?
We have been approached by a potential restaurant that would like to go into that location. They did send us a notification that if we were to lease it, that they would be interested in subleasing it from the CRA.
So why doesn't that restaurant lease it from the owner?
The property owner, I think, feels better secured with the CRA. There was somebody else who was interested in this location prior to, which would have been another smoke, vape shop type look for this location. Property owner asked the CRA to take, since he's going out of town, he has more of a comfort level leasing it to us and letting us turn around and sublease it to a viable tenant that we feel will fit this area.
Yeah, I understand that's the model we've used down there, but I struggle. I believe that government should actually be as small as we possibly can, and we don't need to spend money. If we don't need to spend a dollar, we shouldn't spend it. And I tend to think this area has a lot of interest. I get calls from people who say, how do I open a business in Old Town now? So I think it's kind of ready to succeed on its own without these type of subleases where we're using taxpayer dollars and taking on the risk of this. So to rent a vacant space in the hopes that we find a tenant, sounds like I have no doubt that we will find someone, but I just think that these should be private transactions that don't involve the city.
I think also what we do get approached as well, and they always want to know what properties does the CRA have, own, or that they can rent from us, because in the short scheme of things, we can probably offer a little bit more than what a property owner could do for this particular tenant, and I believe that's why the property owners look to the CRA to lease to find those compatible uses in that location. And Old Town is still an area of transformation.
It certainly is, but I still think that these could be private transactions that the CRA could still assist or be involved, or there's probably grant money to help update the properties that could be available, right?
That is correct, and we do make people who call aware of that. And in this particular case, if we do sublease it, we would probably allow that sublessee to apply for the incentives that we have available.
Right.
Do this build out, because we do know that in this particular location, he may be looking at $500,000 to $600,000 in build out if he's putting in a restaurant location there.
And if that restaurateur leased it from the owner, they would still be able to apply for that money?
That is correct, but we could also offer a fixturing period to allow them to do that.
I understand that there's more flexibility, and we provide probably more support and comfort to people as being the landlord. But I still think this area is, it is in transition, but I think that we are ready for arm's length transactions over there and that we don't need to be spending people's money on more vacant spaces. So, thank you.
Very good. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I have to agree with Commissioner Fournier. That was my question too, is why are they not leasing directly from the landlord? With, if we need to assist or bring two and two together or help with certain things, I feel like they can be separate agreements without us becoming middlemen.
In this particular case with this particular property owner, like I said, he approached us to ask, because he needs to keep some form of cash stream going. I'm not going to get into his current situation and what that is, but he also felt like that he could really rent to anybody he wanted to. Like I said, there was a vape store that wanted to go into this location, but he opted to approach us to do that leasing so that if he couldn't find another tenant within the next 5 to 6 months, he knew that he still has that cash flow coming in from the CRA while we seek that viable tenant and allow that tenant to play into.
I get it, and that's the plight of every landlord is, vacancies. And, that's part of being a landlord, though. The idea that we as the government become this like safety net for landlords is, I know we've discussed it before and just trying to get out of the landlord business because it can go in all sorts of other directions. Couldn't we just take this restaurateur who we're working with, who is interested, and introduce them directly to this landlord and help them get a lease, maybe give them extra security deposits or other types of guarantees, and still be able to not be a part of this? And hopefully we know after one's moved in, hopefully what we've created in Old Town, they do well and continue to go along. But I don't know, if the landlord was looking to sell to us, that'd be a different conversation. But to just be a safety net for a commercial landlord is at this stage in the development there is odd to me.
We're still looking at this as that we're getting it below market rate rent, even if we are reimbursing back on the taxes and the property taxes and the insurance. It still kind of helps the CRA to keep a little bit of control of what the lease rentals will be in that area as it's still going through its transformation. I agree, we're getting there, we're just not there yet.
At what point in this property do we hit break even?
This property,
You said we're getting below market rent, and then we're going to be leasing at, I would assume, market rent.
for him, he'll be breaking even with what we're going to be paying.
But for us, when are we would be charging market rent, though, correct?
Yes, we would. We would turn around and sublease it over. And when I figured it out with what the current taxes are and kind of not having 100% knowledge of what he's paying for his commercial tax on this property, I'm averaging it at about $21 a square foot. We would turn around and we will sublease it to that tenant coming in for that amount. We want to break even. We don't want to make an investment on the property, but we do want to break even, and we need to make sure that we can cover any maintenance cost that goes with that. All of these transactions would turn over to a sublessee.
Well, and I would say, if we do this, then to also maybe don't do it at 21, do it at 22 to make sure we cover our vacancy rate, cover the investments if we do need to put money into the property to create a commercial kitchen space, et cetera, to make sure that it is business-wise makes sense. Because, it's just, the fewer of these we have, I think, the better in the long run, and getting out of these would be best.
Very good. Commissioner Seeger-Seaton.
Thank you. So the whole concept, the landlord, the owner of the property approached the CRA, which means he's out of state, he doesn't want to have to deal with transient tenants. Say some guy comes in there and rents for 6 months, goes out of business, then he's left again, re-renting it. I think with the CRA, whom the owner had approached us, he wanted that sense of security and longevity in a long-term lease. And just like we leased the property where South is at for many years, to be able to define the type of atmosphere supported by businesses that we want in the area. And I think we've done a good job. That is the concept of what a CRA is all about. So the owner, came to the CRA. I mean, it's all well and good if you own the property, Vice Mayor, and you decided, well, I could just rent it out myself. That's not what the man or woman decided to do. I think the CRA's done a good job. We are kind of at that, I don't know if we've reached quite that peak, but that is what the CRA is designed to do, to help the types of businesses in the art entertainment business that we want in that area to revitalize it. And we're there. And we're talking going to, 30, 50, 100 years down the road, defining. So I think this is what the CRA is designed to do. I think it's great if someone's going to come in there and refurbish the space to create a restaurant, which supports the other area and the backyard. So I think that we would be remiss if we didn't support this. We're not in this man's real estate business. It's he came to the city. So I'm gonna support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss.
Yeah, I have to completely agree with Commissioner Severson-Eaton. This is a CRA designated area, and we've put millions and millions of dollars into trying to improve this neighborhood, and it's not there yet. It's getting better, but it isn't there yet. And again, this for me is another no-brainer. We get to control who's going to be moving into this space. He could rent it to a sex shop. He could rent it to who knows who. And if we've put all of this money to trying to develop this neighborhood, and we're passing up an opportunity to control a parcel of property that is prime location right on Flagler Avenue, I mean, don't we want to make sure that it's the right kind of business that we want and not who knows what? So again, to me, this is another no-brainer. In the real world, I would agree that the market should dictate, but this isn't federal highway. This isn't a land. This is in a CRA designated area where we have spent a lot of money to make the neighborhood better, and this is another opportunity to make the neighborhood better. And again, not nitpick particulars. I'm going to support it. Thanks.
Thank you. And I have to agree, Commissioner Moss and Segerson-Eaton. I think, there's an old saying, penny wise and pound foolish. I think we have embarked on an endeavor in our Northwest CRA to really make a difference in several areas. And I think it would be, at this point, just premature to turn our back on an opportunity like this, especially a piece of property that backs up to our backyard, that we just spent a bunch of money to create an area that those buildings can then access, and we have an opportunity to control one of those parcels. And I have to agree with Commissioner Fournier and Commissioner or Vice Mayor. Eventually, yes, you're right. Let the market dictate. But at this point in time, that area is in transition. It has not transitioned. It is an area in transition, and there are precedents across this country where people have gotten to the edge and said, that's it, we're far enough. We're not going to do that anymore because let the market take care of it. And it goes the other direction. I want this to succeed, and I know everybody else does too. I don't want to take a gamble. At this stage in the game, no, I think it's critically important that we go ahead and execute this and make sure that we can control that piece of property. We've done it previously, and I think it's worked out quite well for us. And I would not want to see our investment put in jeopardy at this point. Thank you. Commissioner Moss?
Just one last comment. I mean, this amount of money, in terms of the money that we've spent in that area, is pocket change. It's pocket change, and once we rent it, it may come back to us. And in the long term, if a restaurant's there for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, we could make money on it. So I just don't understand why you wouldn't want it. Thanks.
Very good. Vice Mayor?
I think it's still, we do need to continue to shepherd along this area and make sure it works. I think my biggest thing on this is just that we have someone. If this was just if this guy just isn't here and wants to rent it to us and we were going to market and we were going to go and try and find somebody, it would be much more scary. But if we have someone pretty much like in,
We've had someone who's expressed interest. I don't know if they're there yet. He did send us an email saying he would be interested. I think he had to go, sharpen his pencil, et cetera, to potentially lease. We look at this as we're protecting our investment that we've made in the backyard, as well as we have a major tenant across that location who's also invested money into this area. So this is, like the mayor said, another way for us to control a property that we can bring another good tenant to.
and I would never want us to not be involved in trying to do that. It's just maybe it's not this one, but as we approach this precipice of transitioned, instead of transitioning, perhaps we need to figure out a way in which we can still be involved and help guide the future tenant or landlords that need assistance, but at the same time remove ourselves as landlord in probably the nearer future, just because the other ramifications that can come from, when things go south, when suddenly now we are now a victor and needing to go down those roads of legalities and such that are not fun for anybody.
And the initial term of this lease is 5 years, and hopefully in 5 years down the road, you won't have to exercise that option because whoever comes in will be so successful that
Yeah.
maybe they'll purchase the property, I don't know, but
Or just take over the lease straight up.
correct.
Very good. And Commissioner Perkins?
Yes, the two buildings to the south of this particular building, what's going on with those two buildings?
The one directly to the south has a tenant going into that location. It's owned by Old Goat. And then the other two buildings, currently, they're under renovation with the most southern building there, the two-story. That one's under renovation. The one just north of that has a tenant in it, Sofel Steep, the tea house.
Directly on that corner there, that's supposed to be the restaurant on the south end of it?
They don't have a tenant currently at that location.
Okay, but it's going to be, or supposed to be a restaurant in the
It
future?
could potentially be a restaurant, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Very good. For the Commissioner Fournier?
Thank you. This made me think of what we were discussing earlier with parking. So if this is a restaurant, are there parking concerns here? The whole area is underparked.
Well, there is on-street parking. We are putting in, I believe, temporary parking on one of the Adachi properties. We're going to put a temporary parking lot there. The CRA is also, as you know, through our budgeting process, we're allocating it funding to some form of a parking garage being put in Old Town. So we are looking at the parking needs currently.
Okay, thank you. I agree that there's part of me that completely agrees that controlling this is the right solution here, but I also I look at spending people's money and we are then the landlord, we are taking all of the risk, both, if it succeeds, great. If it doesn't, then we take that risk. We are out our money and possibly have to get rid of a tenant. And I think there needs to be a process where we are involved, just like the Mayor said, where we are involved in this, but we are not the principal. We are not the landlord of all these properties going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Great idea, but I'm not sure, once you're out of the leasing position, I'm not sure how we could dictate what private property owners do with their properties, but that's something else we can discuss at a later date. Commissioner Moss?
Commissioner Fournier, in all due respect, if that were the case, what you're saying, we wouldn't have a CRA. That's what the CRA is all about. And if we don't want to get involved in these things, if we don't want to be spending people's money, we wouldn't have two CRAs. That's what we do. We take the tax incremental money and we invest it. So having a CRA and not investing and not worrying about people's money, it's counterintuitive. Let's just can the CRAs.
Very good. Commissioner Fournier?
So I agree that the TIF funding has to be spent, but I don't think it should be spent on more renting vacant properties. I think that there's lots of need in the Northwest CRA and lots of opportunity, and I don't think, I think this area, like I said, it is I think, ready to transition. Just that we have a landlord who doesn't want to do the work to be a landlord, so we are willing to do it and step in, doesn't feel right to me.
What if he puts in the store that has bees that frighten children?
Moss, go ahead.
You know, we're doing somebody else's job, and you know, do we want to be on the selection committee? I mean, where do we stop and let people do their jobs? I mean, we want to pick the art, we want to pick colors, we want to pick. Now we want to do more nitpicking. We have a CRA to do those kinds of things, and in all honesty and in all due respect, I think that some of us get a little bit too nitpicky and involved in the details, which is not our job to do.
Well, Commissioner Moss, the way we make these decisions is through a vote. That's it. It's through a vote. Commissioner Fournier, you had your hand up.
Quickly, Commissioner Moss, I think you're the one that wants to be in the weeds and in the details here. You want to pick exactly what goes in here. I want the free market to decide what goes on. I don't want to be involved in this at all.
Even if it's a sex shop.
I'm pretty sure that's not allowed.
Well, why are you pretty sure?
Zoning.
Okay, it's actually, the retail location is a retail location. Very good. I think, have we beat this up enough? Should we go ahead and vote, folks? Yes, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Fournier,
No.
Commissioner Moss,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
No.
Commissioner Seeger-Sinton,
Yes.
Vice Chair McGee,
Yes.
Chair Harden.
Yes. Very good. That takes us up to additional audience to be heard. Since we had none at the front, we don't have any at the back.
That's correct.
Reports. Mr. Harrison, Executive Director.
No report, sir.
Very good. Thank you for that. City CRA Attorney, Ms. McKenna.
No report.
Thank you for that. Our next meeting date is March 19th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Takes us up to CRA Board reports. Commissioner Fournier.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that I had the opportunity to tour Old Town Square, so in this same area that we're talking about that's transitioning, both the ground floor commercial space and the residential units. It is a beautiful property. They are currently leasing, so they have a TCO on, I think, floors 1 to 5, and are leasing the property and are working hard to get the rest of it finished up. So that will really help this area. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Moss.
It's not related to the CRA, but I have to take my hat off and congratulate our Cultural Affairs Department for the enormously successful concert series in Palmyra. Our first one was last Saturday. The CRA, the Cultural Affairs Department counted 250 people, but I can tell you there were easily another 50 in the buildings surrounding the area with cocktails in their hand and listening. So it was a huge success. I'm looking forward to the next two. Thank you very much, Cultural Affairs Department. You get an A++ for that. And I'm going to say that again at our meeting when perhaps there'll be more people listening, but you did a great job. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that update, Commissioner. Commissioner Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two things. I first wanted to say that I had a great conversation with the Roca Group, Phil. We had a meeting of the minds, and we were able to connect. And I just want to say that I'm excited about the project and looking forward to working with him. And what I've also put together is a little small group to kind of oversee the project for the downtown area, so that we can keep the community better informed as to what's going on with that. The second thing I had was for Newen. I wanted to know if there was an update with the City Vista. I wanted to thank also Earl Bosworth for putting helping me put the meeting together with management being there. You were there, CRA, and the security company was there as well. So is there any updates?
New Trans CRA Director. From the community meeting that was organized, the update has been they're still doing the maintenance. There are some issues between the on-site management of the property and the tenants, so that's something that that meeting was great to get that out, that the owner, the management company, there's a disconnect. So they are working through that. They realize that there is an issue, so that's the update. There are ongoing maintenance issues that needs to be addressed, and the owner is doing that.
Okay, can you keep me posted on some of the updates, because I'm constantly getting calls from the residents that live in the apartments, so I can let them know, what they're working on and what to expect, in the future.
The elevator's still out. There's, the supply chain issues on electronics and switchboards, anything electrical. So they're having an issue getting the parts for that one elevator that's been out.
Okay, and my main concern too is the security company, to make sure that they kind of do a little bit more as far as protecting the residents in that area because of the homeless we have there. And
I'll
the
reach out
drugs.
to the owner, the developer, to see when the next scheduled meeting is. I recall that it's going to be at the clubhouse.
Right,
So,
it's supposed to be
I'll keep
sometime
you
in April, so
I'll
we
keep
need
you
to set a date or work with the date together. Right, thank you. That's it, thank you, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Seegerson-Eaton.
No report.
Very good. Vice Mayor.
I just want to thank Horatio real quick for setting up a great meeting with the Pompano Beach Club HOA yesterday. Myself and Commissioner Fisher were able to talk to the residents and fill them in on all the good things happening all around Pompano. We got a lot of good feedback. The one thing I wanted to bring to city manager's just attention that came up was Briney Ave, and that we're having issues with residents attacking, or pedestrians attacking vehicle drivers, and just kind of getting at each other. Vehicles on the shared roadway. It's just high spirits, and as we know, that's a completely shared road between everybody.
Yeah.
And just to try that, we need to probably give some attention over there to make sure everyone realizes that we need to share the space safely and not get too stressed out about it. But just look into what we can do maybe to calm people and especially let pedestrians know also to, that they need to also keep their safety in mind and that vehicles are around. Maybe some sort of a PSA reach out thing or something like that. And then that's all I've got. So thank you very much.
Very good, thank you for that. I've got no report. This meeting is adjourned.